Today I'm going to walk you through a framework I call the partner economics book. It's one we've seen partner behavior not as an attitude or as a discipline, but as a system of economic signals. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. I greet you all with the greeting words of peace. We say them in the Arabic language, Assalamu alaikum. And that only means peace be unto you. Welcome and good afternoon, everyone, wherever you're joining from across Africa or far beyond. Thank you for giving me this time today. I want to start with this one simple observation that might change how you think about your platform success. There's this gap. This disconnect that's costing platforms millions, if not thousands, or thousands, if not millions, and most platform leaders don't even realize it's happening. On one side, there's a dashboard, expanding GMV, growing demand, increasing orders. On the other side, your partners, wondering if tomorrow's gonna look like today, wondering if tomorrow's gonna make sense. So, in short, platforms measure growth, partners measure survival. And when these two realities collide, when survival economics don't match growth metrics, here's what happens. Reliability doesn't just drop, it becomes rationally inconsistent because partners make economic decisions that look irrational on your dashboard. Second, cancellations rise not from bad behavior, but from time optimization when earnings become unpredictable. And third, finally, incentives inflate as we pay premiums just to maintain baseline supply. Now, this is not an ops problem or an operations issue. It's rather an economics problem that's manifesting operations. And platforms are like opium. They treat the symptoms while the disease spreads. But today, you're going to learn what the partner economics loop is exactly, what each variable stands for, what happens when one variable breaks, which is the domino effect, and the step-by-step implementation process, etc. So when platforms measure growth and platforms rather measure growth and the partners measure survival, that gap, that's where margins quietly disappear. Now, for years, we've treated partner behavior as random. Some days they're reliable, some days they're not. We've managed symptoms instead of understanding the system. But what if I told you there's a pattern, a predictable interconnected system that explains why partners behave in the way they do? This is the partner economics. It determines everything. It consists of just six interconnected variables and it's the most powerful structure for understanding partner stability. Think of it as a platform's economic heartbeat. When all six are firing, you gain sustainable growth. But when one misfires, the entire system strains. Allow me to briefly walk you through each variable before we go into further detail. Because these six variables are also six conversations that never stop happening in your partner's mind. And that is one. Is or are my earnings predictable? That's earnings rhythm, seasonality, predictability, and or consistency. Two, can I trust tomorrow? That's confidence and trust. Trust that tomorrow is gonna look like today. Trust in future earnings. Trust that tomorrow is gonna make sense. Three, where should I focus my effort? That's engagement logic, which is active participation versus passive availability or weak activity pattern. Fourth, is showing up even worth it? That's reliability calculus, which is behavior shaped by economics, not by personality, by behavior shaped by economics. Five, what's this costing me? Now that's cost pressure, both visible costs like fuel, data, chain wear, service fee, and invisible cost like opportunity cost. A 25-minute ride to pick up phone for only in order to be cancelled, or a 30-minute to an hour of waiting time without an order without a ping. And what acknowledgement does your partner receive after that? And finally, six, should I stay or go? Now that's growth stability, which is long-term retention basis constant churn or retention basis volatility. Now, these six variables are not independent, they're interdependent. By this I mean they depend on one another. You cannot break one variable without breaking everything else. You cannot you cannot break one variable without destabilizing the entire system. Now, most platforms fix reliability. They try to fix reliability with incidents, but that's like opium, treating the symptoms while the disease spreads. But today, you gotta learn what the pattern economics do. Because the opportunity is when you strengthen one variable correctly, the right one, that is, evidently, you strengthen the entire economics. And that leads us to the first, to the entry point, earning, to the entry point, earnings predictability. Here's something I learned directly from partners that changed everything. It changed how I think about partner economics, platform economics, etc. And it might do the same for you. This is partners don't anchor on income. Partners anchor on earnings rhythm. You can attract partners by the amount that you promise to be earning on your platform, but you cannot keep them by that amount. Partners can only be retained or can only be kept, or you can only keep partners by the consistency of that earning, of the earnings that you promised them, the predictability of the earnings that you promised to be earning. So, for instance, your platform might think our average partner earns 1,200 kwacha per day, but in reality, your partner experiences on Tuesdays, if I'm in CBD from 5 to 7 p.m., I usually earn between 400 to 600 kwacha, or from 400 to 700 kwacha. Now you see the difference? It's not about the amount, it's actually about the pattern. So a partner who earns 800 kwacha predictably is more loyal and will perform a partner who earns 1300 kwacha unpredictably because certainty reduces anxiety and reduced anxiety creates commitment. But when that predictability breaks, the first casualty is not their wallet, it's their confidence. Now, what is that confidence? Confidence, pardon me, that confidence is simply trust in tomorrow, the belief that tomorrow is going to look like today, trust in future earnings. And here's where it's fascinating. Trust is not built in boardrooms, it's not built in fancy presentations, trust is not built in big announcements. It's rather built through simple, repeated, simple, repeatable, or repeated outcomes that match expectations. And the trust is built in these five micro moments that I'm about to share with you in a second. Because in these five micro moments, it's where loyalty and trust, it's where partners decide whether to stay or leave, and it's where loyalty and trust quietly erode. And those micro moments, five micro moments, are these. One, first day. When expectations meets reality, or expectations versus reality, does the platform deliver what was promised in their marketing campaign, in their activation, in their onboarding? Does the platform deliver what was promised? Two, first peak, the earnings validation test. When demand is high, does the platform, does the opportunity materialize? Three, first dispute, the fairness credibility test. Is the platform a fair referee? Four, first long wait. This is the patience threshold. Your partner spends 30 minutes to an hour without a ping or without an order. What acknowledgement do they receive? Finally, five, first unfair moment. This is the emotional trigger point. That moment your partner says, hold up now, something ain't right, or this is not right. Now, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but partners don't leave suddenly. They live through micro disappointments that accumulate quietly. The mistake most platforms make is that they invest heavily in big retention campaigns. Rather, trust is built or broken in these five micro moments. And when you manage them deliberately, evidently, you protect your retention silently. So when that earnings predictability breaks, when earnings become unpredictable, partners start asking, if the platform is unpredictable here, then where else are they unpredictable? That question, that's where agent begins, that's where multi-apping accelerates, and that's where loyalty quietly erodes. Now, when confidence drops, it does not just create anxiety, but it also shapes how partners choose to participate. Most platforms measure engagement as or by app open, but real engagement is about availability plus intent. High confidence, or when you have high confidence, that leads to proactive engagement, longer sessions, better acceptance patterns, and consistent participation. Low confidence, however, leads to selective engagement. That is, cherry picking orders, avoiding a certain time, and showing up only during heavy incidents. And here's what most platforms miss, or what most platforms are missing. Engagement drops quietly, long or weeks before churn shows up in your data. Partners have already mentally checked out. Now, this is where most platforms actually notice or finally realize that something is not right or something is wrong because reliability fluctuates, cancellations rise, and peak hours become unpredictable. And it's the mistake we often make. We label this as a partner discipline problem. But what if I told you that reliability is not a personality trait? It's an economic outcome. When predictability and confidence are strong, reliability becomes natural. When they are weakened, reliability collapses, especially during peaks when you need it the most. Now, incentives can temporarily mask this, but they cannot fix the underlying economics. Now, as reliability drops, partners start feeling pressure from another angle, like rising costs, fuel prices increasing, time becomes less efficient, and opportunity costs compound. And it's the painful math. Even if earnings stay flat, higher costs can make the platform feel worse because volatility hits much more when margins are thin. Our partners tell me, Brother George X, I'm earning the same amount, but it feels like less because everything costs more and I can't predict when I'll earn. That right there is the reason why most platforms are taken aback, are taken by surprise by chance because the numbers look stable, but the lived experience is deteriorating. Here, all of this from earnings predictability, confidence and trust, engagement behavior, reliability outcomes, to cost pressure, uh, and to finally cost to cost pressure. Pardon me. From earnings predictability to confidence and trust to reliability, from earnings predictability to confidence and trust to engagement behavior to reliability outcomes and to cost pressure. These are all feeding into one final outcome or into this one final result. That's growth stability. And this is what shows up on your board dashboard. But now you can see that growth stability is not a standalone metric. It's the cumulative result of the entire system. Now, when the loop is healthy, reliability scales naturally with demand. Growth becomes predictable and margins expand. When the loop is broken, somehow, somewhere, growth becomes expensive, fragile, and volatile. In fact, you find yourself constantly recruiting for partners to replace, uh, instead, you find yourself constantly recruiting for partners to replace churn instead of scaling with stability. And this is the reason why retention is not a support metric, it's a commercial strategy. Now, watch what happens when one variable breaks. When earnings become unpredictable, it shifts, it triggers confidence and trust erosion, which shapes selective engagement, which manifests as reliability issues, which is accelerated by cost pressure, and which finally undermines growth stability. So in short, one breakpoint takes down the entire system. Now most platforms treat the symptom. They fix or they try to fix reliability with incentives. But if the root cause is earnings predictability, you are only just masking the infection while it spreads. So when should you use this diagnostic tool? When can you use the partner economics tool? During your quarterly reviews, absolutely. But more importantly, use the partner economics tool when reliability drops without obvious causes. When incentives cost increase but performance doesn't. Before any major growth push. After platform policy changes. And you can absolutely use this partner economics loop during seasonal peak planning. So basically, use the partner economics loop anytime you're about to make a significant decision about your partner strategy because knowing and understanding the system changes the treatment. Here's that you can implement this partner economics loop starting next week on Monday. So week one, start by mapping your current reality by gathering these six simple data points. One, earnings predictability. Ask partners, how predictable are your weekly earnings on a scale of 1 to 5? Calculate 4 week variance and then interview up to 10 partners about their earnings rhythm. 2. Confidence levels. Look at dispute resolution times, check sentiment scores, analyze what percentage of tickets about unfair decisions. 3. Engagement patterns. Don't just measure app open, but look at active versus available hours, feature adoption rates, and communication engagement. 4. Reliability metrics, but segmented. Here, don't look at averages, but look at cancellation rates by partner segment, acceptance during peaks and versus normal days. 5. Cost pressures. Has fuel price increased locally? Survey your partners with this uh, question. Have your operating costs risen? And also calculate time efficiency metrics on cost pressures. And finally, 6. Growth stability. Here you gotta conduct a 90-day retention cohort and ask these two questions. Why are people actually churning? And what's the lifetime value trend? These are six simple data points, but once you gather them, analyze them properly, and you understand them, they'll give you or provide you with profound insight. Week two. That leads us to week two. Step two. Here you bring your team together and you plot these on the loop diagram and ask one question. Where's the weakest signal? Let me give you a real world example. The situation was even in peak cancellations was up by 40%. And the loop analysis showed that earnings during those hours was predictable but low. The score was 2 out of 5. Confidence levels was actually high. The score was 4 out of 5. This was not the issue. Engagement levels, partners were available but declining orders. The score was 2 out of 5. With reliability, it was obviously poor. The score was 4 out of 5. The score was 1 out of 5. This was the actual symptom. With costs, fuel prices had just jumped by 15%. And finally, with growth, the loop analysis showed that even in shift churn was increasing. So the breakpoint wasn't reliability. It was actually the intersection between earnings and cost. Partners were actually avoiding peak hours because the math didn't work anymore. You see, the diagnosis changed everything. The diagnosis changed everything. That leads us to step three, design integrated intervention. Week three. So in week three, design targeted intervention, no blanket solutions, but precise fixes. So if the breakpoint is earnings predictability, create a pattern communication system, something like Tuesday evening in business district pays 25% more than on Wednesdays. As simple as clear as that. If the breakpoint is confidence, launch a transparent initiative, something like here's exactly why your ratings changed. Here's the data we looked at. If the breakpoint is engagement, micro training on optimization does the trick or can fix the problem. Something like a 2-minute video, how to maximize 7 to 5 p.m. earnings. And here's the key measurement rule. Track impact 2 steps ahead in the loop. So if you're fixing earnings, measure confidence improvement. If you're fixing confidence, measure engagement changes. So, and always remember this one important thing. You are managing the symptom. I mean, you are managing the system, not just the metric. This is one key thing to always remember. You're managing the system, not just the metric. And that leads us to step four, which is week 4 to 12. Week four to week 12 is about implementation and monitoring. Here you gotta create a simple dashboard that looks something like this. Earnings predictability, the score 3 out of 5, trending up, pattern training in week 2. Confidence score is 4 out of 5, holding steady, transparent dispute live. With engagement, score 2 out of 5, starting to climb, micro training launched. Your messages have to be brief. Reliability, the score 3 out of 5. Expect improvement in 2 weeks. There's always a lag. And after you create a simple dashboard that looks like what I'm just what you see on your screen, you gotta establish weekly wages. Something like would be or Mondays is gonna be dashboard review. Wednesdays it's gonna be field validation. On this day, you call up to 3 partners at least. And then Friday is gonna be adjustment. There's gonna be adjustment meeting, looking at what's working and what needs adjustment or what needs changing. So once you create your simple dashboard, you establish your weekly rituals. These, everybody, are what transforms the operation from what fires do we fight today to how's the economic health trending. So here's the action plan for the next 7 days. So first, map just one variable. It can be earnings, it can be earnings predictability, it can be confidence, but basically just pick one for a start. Then second, gather initial data. Survey 10 partners, calculate 4 week variance, and then have 2 conversations with field managers. Third, schedule loop analysis. Third, schedule loop analysis session. Invite operations, support, and commercial teams for 90 minutes, and also prepare the data. Fourth, choose the first intervention based on the weakest signal. And after that is done, that's how basically, this is actually how your basic uh, next week action plan should be. Just 4 steps. Map a variable, gather data, schedule loop analysis session, and then choose your first intervention based on the weakest signal. And I've created a something to help you, a complete loop analysis template. Everything we discussed today, starting from the survey questions to the scoring system, and then finally the dashboard. To get it, simply message me on LinkedIn with one simple word, loop, and I'll send it over to you immediately. No cost, just clarity. Because here's the truth. You don't need more data. You basically need a better way to understand the data that you already have. So start with the loop, diagnose the system, and watch how everything that follows becomes predictable. So thank you for lending me your ears and giving me your time. I'm your brother, Jujet. I'll be here for any questions if you got any. Please feel free to drop them in the comments, send me an email, DM me on my LinkedIn, whichever way feels convenient for you. I'll happily respond to your questions. So if you got any questions right now, please feel free to drop your question in the comments. As I leave you with the greeting words and the words of peace, Assalamu alaikum. I thank you.